Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, and welcome into another duly noted podcast brought to you, as always, by our great friends at Titan MRI, title sponsors of the Bob Dooley Invitational that is coming up almost a little more than a week away. And I've been losing my mind, as you would expect it. I feel like fluid is leaking out of my ears. You know, it's like there's so much going on. Every day something new comes up, like 40 times. But it's going to be awesome, and we appreciate them. And of course, we're coming to you. And again, another sponsor we're talking about, Meldon Law, from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator studio here at the Ponderosa. Meldon Law, again, being a big part of it as well. And they also have their high school banquet coming up. I think I'm right on this, that it is after the term. I think it's the 17th, maybe. Don't quote me on that, but I was nice. Josh invited me from Meldon Law to come out there, and so I'm going to try to make it for that as well. Coach Spurrier should be in here on Monday. He is up at the I was wondering where he was. I was just told he was out of town, and I saw the thing on Twitter. He's up at that golf tournament they play. I think it's at Reynolds, with all the coaches are there. And it was just so funny because here's a picture of these coaches playing, and there's Mullen, and there's Meyer, and there's Spurrier. And I'm like, are there any current coaches playing? Of course not. Not too many. Kirby Smart was playing, though. And again, no big deal for him. But anyway, so Coach will be back on Monday, and we'll talk to him about that and how all that went. And then also next Thursday, no show. I'll be busy with the golf tournament. We will be trying, I think we're doing the radio out there Wednesday, and maybe Thursday too. So maybe 2 straight days of doing the show out at Ironwood. I'll find out from Jeff for sure. Jeff will be, of course, doing the baseball game tonight, but he'll be on during the entire radio show today. Just want to give the radio a little plug. I'll plug anything, man. I like to plug things because all the people that have anything to do with anything are very important in my life. And I've found that out really lately, especially just people doing amazing things. I want to send a shout out to Christy Givens too. And I know she'll never see this because I don't think she watches podcasts, but Christy is the executive director of Stop Children's Cancer, and the work she is doing. And it's what I told her. I said, Christy, I'll do another one, but I'm going to try to take some of the stress off me. And that means I'll be putting it on you. And she accepted it. And she goes, fine. What do you need me to do? What do you want me to do? And she is just gone full blown. I haven't taken any of the stress off because I just stress out. I've got old man, I guess they're called old man anxiety, because for me, I never had anxiety. I never had claustrophobia, never anything. But as I got really old, even in my late 50s, I started to get claustrophobic and more anxiety. So I don't know why it happens that way. Maybe it's when the older you get, you realize you're near the end and you go, I don't want it to be today, or something like that. Anyway, all right, enough with the stories about me. Let's get to our Process Service of Gainesville starting lineup. The starting 5 is brought to you by Process Service of Gainesville and the great Scott Hart. We've got Tom Hart on today. I don't think Tom Hart and Scott Hart are related, but we do have Tom Hart on today. And I know Scott Hart's been great at being a great sponsor for this starting 5, and here we go with it. Number 1, I don't know if you stayed up last night. In fact, I know a lot of people probably weren't even aware it was on because it was on the SEC, or it was on the ACC network. But I stayed up for most of the Florida softball game. What I did was a typical Pat Dooley thing. And if you didn't see the game, Florida had a 13-7 lead going to the bottom of the 7th. And a couple of one misplay, then an error on Mia Williams, kind of left the door open, and then they hit a homer to tie it. And when that happened, and they are going nuts, and that place is electric, and I just went, it was at Tallahassee, and I said, Pat, I think there was still 1 out, or no, there were 2 outs. And I go, I don't want to watch the rest of this. I don't want to see them win this game on my TV. Maybe. So I said, I'm going to go in. I'm just going to go to bed. And it's late enough for me to go to bed. I just don't want to see it. So this morning I got up and looked it up to see what happened. And I was pleasantly thrilled. And that is a huge win for Florida. For those of you who don't know, it was 13-all, went to extra innings, went to the ninth inning, and Kendra Falby hits a bomb. And she's just been amazing. Skylar Wallace gets all the publicity, but Kendra Falby is a really good player. We'll get to her in a little bit. But that was a big win for Florida. Huge in terms of whether they're using RPI or KTI or KY jelly. I don't know what they're using for metrics now this year. They were trying to explain it to me on one of these shows, one of the networks, and I still don't know. But that was good for Florida to win at Tallahassee after getting run ruled by them in Gainesville. And Florida was on the verge of run ruling. They were up 11-4 at one point, but they're still, you got freshman pitchers out there. They had Rothrock started. She did well for a while, and then she started to get hit. They brought in Ava Brown. She struggled with her control again, and then they brought Rothrock back. She got the home run. It's you got these freshman pitchers out there, and they're going to learn by these games, and it's just going to make Florida better going forward. All the freshmen they're playing, all the young people they're playing. Jocelyn Erickson's just a sophomore. This is a good team, and they've won their 40th game now, and that's pretty impressive. They're going to host a regional. I don't think they'll host a super regional unless they can get like a sweep this weekend, and then that would depend on what they did in the tournament. Although as Todd Golden told us, the tournament clearly didn't matter in basketball, so maybe it'll matter in softball. Anyway, congratulations to Tim Walton. Congratulations to all the ladies. That is a big, big win for them, and it was fun for me to watch. I watched most of it. I mean, I literally watched the entire game and then left in the bottom of the seventh inning because I just was angry. All right, let's get to number two, and that is what baseball did on Tuesday night. Got it out a win. It's never easy with these guys. At one point, I went out to I'm watching the game in my office, and my wife's watching it in the living room, and I walk out there, and I sit, and I go, maybe this will change their luck. I just want this game to get over with. And they got a double play right away. I said, yeah, see, I knew if I came out and sat with you, they would get a double play. So they win the game against Florida Atlantic, which isn't a great team this year. They're good. They're not great, though, by any means. They're barely over 500. But they needed to get that win because, look, they're chasing 500 is what they are. And there's a lot of games coming up against some really good teams, and it's going to be rough. Don't forget, you get Tennessee this week, then it's Kentucky, then it's at Georgia to finish the season. There's 9 games. You've got a midweek game in there that you should win. And then you got the SEC tournament. The key for Florida, baseball-wise, is going to be to go even 5-4 in those 9 SEC games, just to make sure you're over 500. Because if you get over 500, you're going to get in with the strength of schedule Florida has. And again, they're not going to host either. They're not going to host at all, I wouldn't think. But still, that was a good win for them. It's good to get that win. Florida baseball this year has been an enigma wrapped inside a riddle. It's just been hard to kind of figure out. I mean, they have the best player in the country, and I will argue. I know Condon's got more homers and more RBIs and a better batting average, but he didn't pitch it. He's not 5-0 on top of that. So and again, I'm going to be prejudiced in that I don't own it for long, but it'll be in the raffle or in the silent auction, a Jack Caglione signed helmet. So we want that to go for a lot. And anyway, so they get the best player in the country, and they're fighting to stay over 500. It's a weird team. Pitching just isn't there this year. Maybe it'll be there next year. Freshmen become sophomores. That's key. By the way, if you're looking here, I'm wearing this Patrick Young hat that he gave me out at the thing he did Tuesday. That went really well. He had a lot of people lining up to buy a bunch of books. So he sold a bunch of books, and it was just great seeing him. They did their radio show out there Tuesday. He and Terry Norvell, I was on for a while, and it was just a great, somebody joked, I think it was Terry, I don't have that many friends, so I couldn't get that many people to come out for a book signing of mine, but We bought a couple of books too, from Patrick, a couple more. One of them will probably go into the prize package that next one we send out. So look forward to that. All right, let's get to number 3 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5. And I did want to look, I know that a lot of you listen to the show on Friday, but lacrosse is playing today at 5:30. It's on the plus. So I know a lot of you can't watch it, or maybe you're not interested in lacrosse, but I just want to give them a shout out because what they've done has really been great. Are they 15-2? 15-2 AAC champions. Now they're playing in the AAC tournament. They play Vanderbilt today. And we'll keep an eye on how that goes as it goes forward. Mandy O'Leary's doing a heck of a job with that group, and they're really good. So the AAC tourney starts today. Florida plays Vanderbilt 5:30. Keep an eye out for those results. Meanwhile, number 4 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5, men's golf got the word that they are going to West Lafayette, which is where Purdue is, right? Yes, Purdue is out there. And that's where Kelsey's best friend's out there too. Lauren is out there. She works the video for Purdue, and great for her. So anyway, the point being that the golf team is a 3 seed. Vandy's the 1 seed out there. The top 5 advance to the national championship. So there's a lot of pressure on this team. They're playing better. I know they had a tough loss there to Vanderbilt earlier in the SECs, but they're good. Like I said last week, I think it was, this team's really good. They're not as good as last year, but it's not as lean as a lot of people thought it was going to be. I think a lot of people thought you lose 3 All-Americans, it's going to be a struggle for Florida and for J.C. Deacon, but instead they've won a lot of tournaments. They've had some great performances. But here's the key. Here's the tough one to me. Like, I know that the pressure is really big when you're playing match play and quarterfinals against FSU, or was that the semifinals against FSU? And it's the rivalry, everything that's going on there. And if you lose, the season's over. I know that's pressure, but this is more pressure to me, because if you don't get into the top 5, your season's over and you didn't make the national championship. So you're in a regional, but guys, don't feel any pressure. Okay. Just go out there and be you, play your game. That is the key, as the great Herb Brooks once said. Not the Herb Brooks who's the SID for softball. We had a great time last night, I'm sure, on that bus ride. I bet that bus ride home, I was thinking about what a miserable bus ride home this is going to be if they lose this game. Look, I mean, it's 2.5 hours, and that ride is never fun, especially at night. It's nothing for 2 hours, literally. And I was thinking how terrible it was going to be, but I am sure they enjoyed it. I am sure they had a good time. All right, let's get to number 5 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5, and that will be the first mock draft I've seen, whether there is another one out there. But this was an ESPN one, and it was interesting. Carson Beck, the number 1 pick. Now, again, he's the number 1 pick now. It doesn't mean he's going to be number 1 pick when they actually pick. But Carson Beck, the 1 pick, Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia, number 2. So Georgia's still going to be pretty good. In fact, I went through their 32 picks. Half of them are from the SEC. Now, this is the new SEC, so I get to count Texas and Oklahoma. I don't recall any Oklahoma players being in the first round. I think there were several Texas players in the first round. And at some point, I am going to do a kind of a mock, not a mock draft, but a mock top 25. Maybe it'll just be top 15 or something. But anyway, we'll see how that all goes. I got a lot of things in the works. And here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get everything done by Tuesday. And then Hurricane Tim comes to town. And we've got a lot to do, a lot to get out there to the golf course and everything. So, but anyway, I got a lot of things in the works. I got a lot of things in the works for Gators Wire. In fact, I'm going to do one tomorrow about the 12 games that are going to decide the SEC race. And I'm looking forward. I haven't even started that research, but I'm really kind of excited about that one. I got another one about the 12 reasons kids go to a school. You know what one is, number one. There's no doubt about it. NIL is number one, but there's a lot of other things. See if I can get 12. I think I've already at about 9 or 10. So anyway, that's going to do it for our process service of Gainesville starting 5. We appreciate Scott Hart. We appreciate all of our great sponsors. We'll be back with another great person, Tom Hart from the SEC Network. ESPN does such a great job doing everything: football, basketball, baseball. He's probably got to come up with some soccer in the summer. He should be going over to the Winter Olympics. Or Summer Olympics. He should be the star there. All right, so let's get to that interview after we take this break. We'll do that. You'll be back then to listen to Tom Hart and see what he's got to say. And again, we'll do a yes, no, where maybe as well. You're listening or watching another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios.
Process Service of Gainesville offers a rapid turnaround on affidavits of service for Gator lawyers locally and nationwide. Our friend Scott Hart offers immediate responses on status requests and is a member of NAPS and FAPS. And he has been a part of the community for almost 2 decades. Need service? Call Process Service of Gainesville at 407-697-9592 or email shartgators, that's G8TR, at yahoo.com. And make sure you ask about the paralegal legal secretary bonus program.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another duly noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer to Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. to Go. Come on down and enjoy it. Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. It's a great pleasure to bring on via the Big Mills Cheesesteaks Zoom line my good friend Tom Hart. You know him well from the SEC Network, and if you don't know him, then you haven't watched the SEC Network because he is doing football, basketball. It's just, I don't know. You were packing as we were literally getting ready to do this podcast. So I don't know where you're going next.
I don't know where I'm going. By the way, I've always wanted to be part of a cheesesteak Zoom line, so this is a first for me and an honor. No, my travel is so crazy. I'm getting the kids out the door this morning, and I literally got a text saying, "Hey, could you be in Gainesville tonight?" So, hence throwing my backpack together and getting in touch with Delta and saying, "Can I make it there in time for Tennessee and Florida tonight?" We'll see if they need me.
Wow! Oh, so you're coming here now?
Maybe it could be. Maybe. Who knows? Why do we need to plan things, right? Let's just go by the seat of our pants.
Well, if you want, I'll come drive you. I'll drive you down.
All right.
But yeah, it is. I mean, it does. It is I think a lot of people think of broadcasters and what you do for a living and what you're pampered and you have this great situation. But I know better than that because I've seen you guys on the road, man. You don't know where you're going one day to the next.
We had a game 2 years ago when I was working with Andy Kennedy. We had a game in Fayetteville, Arkansas on a Tuesday night, and then in Gainesville on Wednesday night. And he and I were doing the back-to-back together. Now, you hear of the Lakers having a back-to-back. They're going from Memphis to Indianapolis, and they're flying charter, and they're checking into a 5-star hotel. My luggage got stuck somewhere, and I ended up doing the game in like a windbreaker and a T-shirt. And my God bless the people at Delta. My baggage showed up before the game, and we had somebody bring it to the arena, and the producer said, "Hey, your bag's here. Do you want to go put your suit and tie on?" And this was 30 minutes before tip. And I said, "No, I most certainly do not want to put a suit and tie on. I'm much more comfortable in this. And it's going to be crumpled up into a ball anyway. Nobody cares what we're wearing. Just put the ball in the air and let's call a basketball game."
Yeah, I had one where I went to the Women's College World Series, and didn't show up for 2 days, and I'm like, this is not good, and I don't know what I don't even. Then you don't know. You're afraid to leave the hotel in case the bag arrives. You want to be there when it arrives. So
yeah,
I don't miss the travel that you still have to do, but that is hard to shift from football to basketball to baseball, and different partners and everything like that.
It's fun though. It's kind of the challenge. Like, I don't know if I really have ADHD or I just think I do. I've never been diagnosed with anything that would suggest that, but I know I get bored easily, right? And I know if you try to put me in a cubicle for 50 weeks a year, I would lose my mind. So the idea that I can go from one sport to another 3 times during the year, that kind of helps me keep my sanity, right? I mean, I love my football guys and I love college football season, but by the end of it, I get excited about basketball. And then as basketball is winding down, I get pretty excited about baseball and get a new group of people to work with. And I also love, and this is unique, I think, in this landscape with all the discussions about NIL and how do you pay players and how do you handle the locker room. Going from football to basketball to baseball, you could say in a way that like I don't want to insult the basketball coaches, but the intensity of all of that decreases a little bit, like from an 85-man scholarship roster in football to the 12 of basketball and then baseball where the money is less. I get coaches all the time asking me like, "Hey, what are they doing on the basketball side?" Or this is what we're doing. How did Eric Musselman handle this? Or how did Todd Golden handle this? Or what did Lane Kiffin tell you about, his work in the portal? And I think that there's a lot to be learned from a lot of these coaches who are they're kind of in their own tunnel trying to do it on their own. And there's a lot of feedback that's available to them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But I mean, that I wanted to ask you because you may get down here and get a chance to see him play, and you've seen him play already. But this phenomenon that is Jack Caglione has been unbelievable. Not only hitting homers, hitting golf ball pitches for homers, the grand slam against Arkansas. It's just and then catching the ball that hit him the other day in midair. He catches the ball and snatches it and throws it back to the pitcher like he was King Kong, and the planes are coming at him. He's grabbing him. Get out of here! He's a phenomenon. By the way, movie star looks too, right? I mean, when this guy makes it to the big leagues, he is going to be a cultural phenomenon. I mean, his muscles have muscles, right? I mean, we had the Arkansas series last week, grounds out to second base. We have Dave Van Horn on the next half inning. And he says, "I've never seen a ball hit that hard in my life." Literally 115 miles off the bat. He goes, I've never seen anything like that. And Dave Van Horn's been around baseball his entire life. So I don't know what the ceiling is with Cags. I think that's a fascinating part. Florida's had a great history of power hitters, right? I remember Matt Laporta setting the home run record and then kind of fizzled out in pro ball. If I remember, maybe he got a cup of coffee, but he was with the Indians for a little while, but he didn't stay long. Yeah.
But most of his success came at the AA level and below. The power doesn't always translate, right? But I think his power translates. I think the math shows you it does. And he's got such great back-to-ball skill that he puts the ball in play anyway. He went 55 consecutive at-bats without a strikeout. For a guy with 26 home runs, that's unheard of. I mean, that is what makes you think, if I were a big league GM, I'd invest in this guy.
I would too, and again, I don't even know if he'll ever pitch after this year. I mean, but he's a battler, and he can go 98, and I mean, you could always he'd be a good positional guy to bring in a 13-2 game. I know that, but
oh my God,
you were talking about that ball. He hit a ball against FAU Tuesday night to the second baseman that was 117 off the bat
ground ball, and the second baseman literally went, "Whoa, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to catch that ball. I don't want to get even near it." It was incredible. I started laughing out loud when it happened.
Yeah, it's like being in a bull ring. I mean, the guy's got the hardest hit home run or the farthest hit home run ever measured by Statcast, and we argue about numbers all the time and analytics and what role do they play. But to me, how far, how hard, all of that stuff, how many, right? Just keep it simple. It's why boxing will always be a great sport, right? It's just two guys and the 100-meter dash. It's like, let's keep it simple. The simplest way to put it is no one that we're aware of has ever hit a ball farther than he hit it. Now, you could figure in the bats and all that stuff. But that's amazing. I mean, that is all the guys in pro ball and all of the games and all the opportunities and all of the Ted Williams red seat in Fenway Park is, like what, 60 feet shorter than what he hit. And David Ortiz says there's no way anybody ever hit a ball there in this ballpark, and he's already done it. So
yeah, it's funny because I know it's aluminum bats and wood bats, but they'll be talking about that ball went 406 feet, and I'm like, that's nothing, man. That is nothing to me. I did want to talk a little bit of football with you. I know that spring games are all over now, and we saw what we saw, and it feels like this is with the two teams coming into the conference. I'm just like, I don't know what to think about. Like, Texas may be the best team in the SEC. Georgia probably is, but Texas may be number 2, right? Right now, I would say Texas is number 2.
I mean, yes, I think that's fair, and it's fair to give Georgia the benefit of the doubt. But then I would ask you, okay, if you had your pick of quarterbacks, how many Texas quarterbacks would you pick before you pick Georgia's quarterback? And the answer could very well be 2, right? You take the first 2 guys at Texas before you take Georgia. I think what Sark has done needs to be applauded, and we'll learn a lot more about it. But we had him in the Alamo Bowl 2 years ago, and we talked a lot about in our meetings, preparing for the SEC, even though he just wanted to win a football game against Michael Penix in Washington that next night. And he said, listen, it was a very deliberate plan that we put in place. Like, we were built for the Big 12. We had to get bigger, and we had to get bigger up front. We had to become, the offense is the offense in the Big 12, so they weren't worried about the explosiveness there, but they had to build even more of a run game than when they had Bijan Robinson, and they've done it. And so I think they're really well poised to step into SEC style of play and have success. And I think that takes a lot of foresight, and that does also take some sacrifice. I mean, what they were doing in terms of how they built the roster was working for them at the time, but they knew it wasn't going to work into the future. So I think they're in really good shape coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I saw one mock draft today had Chip. I always want to say Chip Beck, Carson Beck. You remember Chip Beck from the old days of golf? Didn't go for it at the Masters on 13. That's the Chip Beck I know. But Carson Beck is the number 1 pick in the draft next year. So I guess that could happen, but I would take Quinn Ewers over him personally, but what do I know?
Right. And I think, projections can be dicey, right? I mean, you're asking to project with Beck and Ewers. I think what's fascinating about Ewers is he has the snaps under his belt, and he's also got this trajectory where that first year, like what are you getting out of the guy? And is he mature enough to be quarterback at the University of Texas? And is he mature enough to lead a locker room? And the answer early on was like, no, this guy's got a lot to learn. It's not about him, it's about the team. And when you're the quarterback, especially at a place like Texas, you've got to pick that up in a hurry. And then last year, he really turned, like going into last year and that last offseason, he turned it around. And I think that's fascinating, guys who have already been through the battles and they've run into roadblocks and they've pushed through those walls and then have had success. So, I'm a terrible prognosticator when it comes to this guy's going to be a great pro or that guy's not. It's easy to rip a team for spending $180 million on a quarterback and then, taking the guy with the 8th overall pick. But who knows how good, Michael Penix ends up being for the Falcons or whoever he ends up playing for. I love watching guys play in the here and now, like where their cleats at right now. Let's worry about the pros later.
Yeah, I heard. I can't remember who it was. One of the talking heads on during the when they had 9 guys on the broadcast, for for ESPN for the draft, and one of them just said, "Look, first of all, everybody has to understand. None of us knows whether anybody who's going to get picked is going to be a good player. We don't know that." And I said, that is a great point because we have no idea. We didn't know Jamarcus Russell was going to be a bust. We didn't know Tebow would go in the first round and go through the highs and lows. We have no you have no idea what's coming up in the draft, but that's just the way it is. I mean,
no, it's impossible. I was calling a game last night, and second baseman for Mississippi State, Amani Larry, his dad was drafted by the Yankees in 1996, and he was like a 38th round pick back when the big league draft had that many. Now, obviously, all drafts are impossible to predict, but MLB is probably the worst. But I did a dive into that. The Yankees had 100 picks in that draft. They took 100 players. The combined WAR from all of the players they got was like 34 wins above replacement. Usually you get that out of one big leaguer, one guy who was a first round pick who stuck around and was serviceable for 10, 12 years or, 1, 2, 3-time All-Star. No, they got that for the entire draft, and they used 100 selections to do it. And it's the Yankees, right? It's not some bottom barrel team who's, not staffed properly to scout and recruit guys. It's always been an inexact science, and no matter how many measurements you use, it will continue to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to a yes, no, where, maybe I wanted to ask you how weird it's going to be to see Calipari walking out of there in a red suit to do a game the first time you're in Fayetteville for a basketball game.
It's going to be really weird. It's going to be. Listen, I don't know. Once again, I don't know how Mark Pope is going to work at Kentucky. I just felt that John Calipari and Kentucky basketball were the perfect marriage, right? I like Tubby was a great coach, but I don't know that was a perfect marriage. And the way it ended, and he ends up, leaving for different pastures, not greener, but different pastures, is probably evidence of that. I think it takes a certain personality. It takes a showman. It takes a guy who's not afraid of the spotlight. That spotlight's as important as basketball is in the state of Arkansas. And I love that it's important there. And I think the league is better because of that when Arkansas is good or great. That spotlight isn't as bright. I mean, the Kentucky spotlight is worldwide. Arkansas is just one state. So it's going to be weird. We'll see. And we'll see if it's – I don't know if it's what he really wants, And so it'll be interesting to – see him navigate those waters.
Yeah. I thought what his statement was true. Everybody in Kentucky needed to hear somebody else. They needed a new voice. The players did, the staff did, the fans certainly did. They were tired of losing in the first round too. So
the athletic director did.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's play yes, no, where, maybe with Tom Hart. Of course, it's brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak, street dining done the right way, and a sponsor of the Bob Dooley Invitational. We appreciate them. They'll be cooking sausage dogs and bratwurst on the first tee, so that'll be fun. Let's get to number one. The SEC will have half the hosts when the regionals are announced in baseball.
Wait, what are my options again?
Yes, no way, or maybe.
Okay. Half the hosts? No. I no way feels a little bit strong, but I think no's the answer there. I mean, Mississippi State is in 5th place as we speak today, and an outlier. They wouldn't be hosting as of right now, but they're 5th place in the league. I think I would shift the question a little bit and say they'd have half the national hosts. Absolutely. Maybe more than half, but the top 4 are elite, and there may be room for somebody else to slide into the top 8, but I don't see 8 hosts.
Okay. I think you'll see that in softball, though. They're doing really well in softball, obviously. Number 2, you have ever confused the name of your broadcast partner because you do so many games at so many different places and so many different sports?
I don't want to say no way, never, but it's happened to me more than it's happened to my partners. I've been called every name in the book. And I usually respond with the name of one of my other partners. You know, if Jimmy Dykes calls me Carl Ravitch, I'll say, "Really, Dane?" And then just move on. Like, you got to roll with it.
That's hilarious. All right, finally on Yes, Nowhere, maybe Florida will pick 10th or lower when they do the preseason poll at SEC Media Days in football.
I'm doing the math on the teams that would be below them. You know, Vandy, Arkansas,
Mississippi
yeah,
State.
they'll be 10th or lower.
Yeah, I think they will too. And I don't know where I'd put them, but I think they're better than people are expecting. But you know, they still have to navigate the schedule, and we'll see. I mean, they got to win that first game. That's about you got to win the first game against Miami, and then we'll see what happens after that.
I'm leery of that one. I think back to the end of the Ed Ogeron era, and they went out to UCLA, and you know, he was talking trash to their fans about the color blue they were wearing, and they lose the game, and that was it. You like it really didn't matter what happened after that for Ogeron.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, love having you on. Hey, by the way, I'm wearing Patrick Young's foundation hat, so I got one.
Beautiful. What a wonderful human being.
He is the best, man. You know him well, and he's a good friend of mine, and I you know, it's always so disheartening when you see him, but by the end of the day, you say, hey, everything's fine, you know, because he's made you feel that way.
No doubt. If he can smile, we can all smile.
Exactly right. And you're always smiling. Hopefully you'll be smiling down in Gainesville tonight, and we'll see you there if that's the case. But thank you so much for coming on, Tom. We'll be back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Studios.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 280 discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Meldon fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Appreciate all of our sponsors, and certainly appreciate all of our guests over the years that we've been doing this podcast. So, great guests. You know, we try to kind of vary former players, broadcasters, celebrities of some note. So we just try to kind of vary it up for you. But anyway, we need to get to our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Speaking of sponsors, not only is Ken Hesser a sponsor, Ken and Jennifer, sponsor of this podcast, but also of our golf tournament. In fact, they're going to have a great little hole out there where they're going to have desserts. I don't even know what they're going to have. They've been quizzing me about exactly what, how many players and everything. It's going to be cool. I can't wait to see what it is. All right, let's get to number one on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, and that is the story. Oh, I did not mention the important thing. Hesser and Kipke is a Gainesville law firm specializing in the areas of family law and workers' compensation. If you're a loyal listener of this show, you know who we are by now. If not, Google the firm, check out the reviews, and hear what our clients have to say. Ken and Jennifer can be reached 24/7 via call or text, Right, 352-339-9920. 352-393. Let's get it right. 352-339-9920. Hesser and Kipke. Number one on Hesser and Kipke's three things. Robin Roberts did a big interview with Brittany Griner, and I think the thing that was most revealing about it was that when she first was in that prison, the first few weeks, she thought about, I need to kill myself. I can't do that. I can't live like this. And again, she was taking some vape. She had a vape with some cannabis residue in her, so whatever. And come on, man. So anyway, she thought about killing herself, and then she said, "No, I can't do that because I don't know what they'll do with my body, and I don't know if they'll give it back to my family." But that's how destitute she was, and dealing with that, it's tough, man. I mean, I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get into anything like that. But I just know anybody. If you ever saw the movie, was it Midnight? It's not Midnight Run. It's Midnight Express, I think it is. And the two girls are locked in I think it was a Japanese or a Chinese jail. Anyway, it's pretty good, actually. Who is in it? I was trying to think who was in it. I think Greg Kinnear's in it too. Anyway, Brittany Griner, feel her pain, man. That's terrible that she had to go through that. And thankfully she's okay now and she's out playing in the WNBA. It's not going to make me watch games. Even Caitlin Clark's not going to make me watch games. Look, I watched the Caitlin Clark games when they were in the NCAA tournament. I was excited about them. We were all watching them and having fun, but who am I supposed to root for a WNBA team now? I don't. Like if there was a game and there was like 2 minutes left and I stumbled into it, and she was playing, I'd probably watch it. But other than that, she ain't no Tiger. Okay. All right, let's get to number 2 on our Hesser and Kipke three things. And that is those of you who are fans of the Tampa Rays may not be happy, but Comcast is dumping Bally Sports. They've got it, and then they may end up getting them back, but they're in a big money dispute. It always comes down to how much you're charging for what you can get for free. Yeah, what you used to get for free. That's a line from a Petty song. How much we can charge for what you used to get for free. There goes the last DJ. All right, no more singing, Pat. This is another interesting thing. We see this happen a lot where they go, "Hey, look, we'll take you off the air." And then they go, "Okay, we'll give you the extra $1 per subscriber." And we'll see what happens. But if you're looking for the Rays, if you're a Rays fan, you're looking for them, go to WRUF and listen to the game because we carry all their games. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic there with Bally, and because Bally this is regional, they're regional networks. And again, remember we used to have Sunshine, we used to have Sun Sports, we've had all these different incantations of secondary markets, or not secondary markets, but secondary broadcasts. And but we'll see what happens with this one. Finally, number 3, sad news on Hesser and Kipke three things, because we have a lot of sad news on it, only because we want to tell you when people pass away. In this case, it was a stunner, Marcus Outson, who many of you remember from the game against Florida when he didn't do a whole lot, but they found a way to win that game, and that is one that has stayed with me for a long time. I think it was 23-12 was the final. Passed away. He had a rare immune deficiency disorder, and really felt bad. They didn't give his age, but I can do the math, and I would guess he was around 48, somewhere in there, somewhere in that area. But just sad to hear. I mean, look, I didn't know Marcus Outson. I never met the guy. He was kind of a folk hero over there because he got them all the way to the championship by winning their last 2 games, one against Florida. But in the championship game, they got beat by Tennessee. Tennessee was really good that year, and Tennessee had an incredible defense. But I'll remember that game the Florida game. Outson fumbled in the end zone, but somebody managed to recover it, even though Gerard Warren was on the ball, and they somehow got it away from him. And then he threw what looked like a pick to Marquand Manuel, and instead it tipped off his hands. It was right here and ends up in Peter Warwick's hand. He just dances all the way to the end zone, does all these moves and everything. Remember that game? So, but just really sad. I mean, look, we have a lot of hate in this world, and we're part of it because we, Miami baseball and Kentucky basketball. But you never want to see anybody injured, and you never want to see anybody get hurt. Well, you certainly don't want to see people pass away. So our prayers go out to his family. That's tough. He's been dealing with that for a while. So really sad story. Let's get to our Adams Ribco to go Gator of the week. This was an easy one, although it's never easy for me to say too many good things about Adam. Okay, Adam Brewer is a man. He is one of the best in the world. Just had a birthday, and he'll be out there at the tournament serving up sliders early and barbecue late. You're going to get – I've always said one thing, and maybe I shouldn't say it. If you leave the Dooley and you are hungry, totally sober, and didn't win any prizes, you've had a bad day. It's almost hard. Now, I'm not asking people to drink. I'm not suggesting that they drink. But you better eat because there's food everywhere. Big Mills is cooking on the first hole. Adam will be there. Texas Roadhouse is going to be there. Swamp is going to be there. Hesser and Kipke is going to be there. Bunt Cake, Nothing But Cakes is going to be there. Tri-Eagle Sales is going to be there with a great monster drink that they brought out. It's called... now I'm blanking on the name of it, but there's just so much stuff that's going to be out there. The trouble is when you have that much stuff on a tournament, you're in charge of it all, and it's like I got 18 problems. But we'll get there. But anyway, for the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the week, very easy choice today. It was Kendra Falby. Not only did she hit the game-winning homer last night, turned a double play to end the game. Also had 5 hits total in the game. I mean, this was a crazy game. You don't see a lot of 15-13 softball games between top 20 teams. Even though it went extra innings, it only went 9. That's a baseball game, right? But Kendra Falby has been a stud, and it's been great. And I wanted to make sure we gave her this award. In fact, I was going to probably give it to her if they lost the game because she was so good. But they won it because she hit a homer. So congratulations, Kendra. This is the biggest honor of your life. You are the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the week. Appreciate her. All right, let's get to our Leonardo's quick picks. Of course, we're starting all over again with a new contest. And here's what we're going to do. Florida versus Texas A&M. We're staying with the softball theme here. Florida, Texas A&M this weekend. So you got to get your picks in before 7 o'clock on Friday. Just how many does Florida win? 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. You have 4 options. 0, 1, 2, 3. It's almost like that Celebrity Jeopardy. Just write down a number. 3. Who's it wrote down 3? Was it French Stewart that Jimmy Fallon was doing, or might have been Johnny? I don't know. Anyway. So that's all you got to do to get in to qualify. Is how many games does Florida win against Texas A&M? Texas A&M is ahead of them by a game in the standings, so it's going to be a heck of a battle. Can't wait to see it all take place. All right, let's move to our this, that, and the other. Always love this, that, and the other, and it's brought to you by Ballyhoo Grill. They'll be cooking up 100 wings for us for the party Friday night. We appreciate Ballyhoo Grill, Ironwood Golf Course, home of the Bob Dooley Invitational, and Dar Shakow Insurance, longtime sponsor of the Bob Dooley Invitational as well. We appreciate them. All right, this is that it's kind of, I'm trying to say this the right way. So when Dion comes into the league to college football, and he's at Jackson State, we don't think much. We don't worry about it. Then he goes to Colorado, and it's just this big story. It becomes this gigantic, massive story, maybe a little bit too much, too, like everybody's talking about it. And we're trying to figure out why people love it so much, and then that becomes the whole thing. And we well, he does things different, and I think a lot of people like that, and it was what it was. It was one of the biggest stories in college football last year was Deion Sanders at Colorado. They went 4-8, but it was the biggest story. They were on TV all the time, it felt like. And so the other is that a lot of people were put off by it. We didn't, I think look, I have no doubt that some of it is racial. There's no question about it in my mind. Some of it is you're going against the blue bloods. That's not the way we do things around here. Some of it is the whole NIL stuff that because of NIL, because of the transfer portal, you can turn your complete roster over. Just bring your kids. That's all you got to do, and put them around some good players. But 4-8, and we, that's still what their record was. And that is that you would think during the offseason maybe things would quiet down, but they didn't. I'm sorry, the other is I did that. Now I'm doing the other. Well, but it would quiet down. Instead, Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders start making fun of a kid who was interviewed by The Athletic and saying he wasn't any good, and that's why he's gone and all this. And then they get after some guy, my guy's going the first round. My kid's going the first round. When's your kid going? This kind of childish behavior that we've known from Deion for a long time, and it continues. And it is, look, they're the black hats. That's the bottom line. They're going to be, and I'm sure they love it. They love the fact that they're going to be the villains. Yeah, we'll be the villains. How about that? Okay. Well, a lot of people are going to be rooting against you. I really I don't care that much about Colorado because they don't play that many important games. It was a big deal early, and then it kind of became fun. The more they lost, the more you kind of enjoyed them losing, I think. I don't know. I think you see my point. This, that, and the other brought to you by Ballyhoo, Ironwood Golf Course, and Darshackow Insurance. Let us get to wrap it up with our Swamp games of the weekend. We always like to talk about the Swamp Restaurant and what a great job they do over there. It's a place to go to watch multiple sports on TV. And we appreciate them for being a major sponsor. They'll be out there serving margaritas on the second hole. Got to make sure I get a 10 out there for them. We went through that yesterday, so looking forward to it. Okay, let's start off with basketball. Friday, you've got the Cleveland Orlando. Cleveland up 3-2 now. That's 7 o'clock on ESPN. And then you've got a game at 9:30 that night. The Clippers and the Mavs. And Dallas went up 3-2 last night. So that game will be both those. You like game sixes. Game sevens are the best, obviously. But I always like game sixes because both teams are playing with a lot of desperation because you don't want to go to game seven sometimes. Saturday, Indiana, Milwaukee. That'll be good. Indiana's up 3-2. That's on TNT. And then Philly at New York. New York's up 3-2. Man, they had them closed out too. I was watching that game. That game's at 7 on TNT. So 1 o'clock on TNT on Saturday if you want the early game, and then 7 o'clock. And then there's a lot of games that, because it's like if they win, they had to play here. Can't give you the whole schedule. Let's get to our Sunday game, which is Orlando at Cleveland. That's a 1 o'clock game on ABC. And Dallas if it's a necessary game, Dallas is playing on the road, and that's an 8 o'clock game on TNT. So again, I know that NBA is not a big deal around these parts, but in some areas it is. People are listening to this podcast all over the place. So, but I did want to give you those games. Softball, Friday night, 7 o'clock on the Plus. Now, the good thing is Saturday, 2 o'clock on the SEC network, Sunday at 1 o'clock on ESPN2. So you get to watch those last two games. Again, this is a huge series for everybody. Florida would have to sweep. Tennessee would have to lose twice for Florida to share the SEC. Anything can happen. Let's just watch it and see what happens. So we got that. And then baseball is tonight, Thursday night, 7 o'clock. is on ESPN, so that'll be fun to watch. The other two games are both on the Plus. They're both 6:30 games, Friday and Saturday on ESPN Plus. So see what the Gators can do. They need to take 2 out of 3. There's no doubt about it. And I know that's easy to say. You're at home, take 2 out of 3, but I mean, it's not. It's a really good team coming here, can hit the heck out of the ball. And I did want to mention lacrosse. If you want to watch lacrosse today at 5:30, it's on the Plus. All right. That's going to do it for another edition of another Duly Noted podcast. Appreciate Zach for doing a great job, as he always does, producing this. We'll be back on another show at Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill on Monday with Coach Spurrier. Pretty sure he'll be back. And we'll find out about his golf scores too, as well. And then, as I said earlier, no show next Thursday. So, wish me luck. That's all I can say. All right, we'll be back on Monday. Until then, I am Pat Dooley. I am deep. I am way back, and I am out of here.